Hey friends, this is Angie here at Abundant Acres Homestead, and today I wanted to talk about storing seeds and some of the mistakes I've made. I know one thing that most gardeners have in common, and that's their love of seeds. We love buying them, we love sharing them, we love planting them, and some of us love saving the seeds. So that's what I wanted to go over today, is actually saving seeds, technically how to store the seeds. So the first thing I wanted to go over is the 3 big conditions when storing your seeds. The first one would have to be light. Obviously, you don't want your seeds to start sprouting before you're ready to plant. So you want to keep your seeds in a dark place. And then there's temperature and moisture. Now, personally, I think moisture is probably the most imperative one to worry about, because obviously if they're wet, they can sprout, and if you don't have them dried out enough before you store them, they could mold. So that is one of the bigger ones that I would say out of those 3. I mean, they're all 3 important, but to me, the biggest one is moisture is the most important. One thing you can do is they have those little silica packs, you know, like when you buy a purse or shoes or whatever, they have those little silica packs. Keep those, because those are awesome to put in with your seeds, because it will pull in any of the moisture that it just happens to be around. The next thing I wanted to go over is how long you can store them. Seeds can remain pretty viable for quite a while. I mean, there's some seeds will only last for like a few months. So if you pulled them this year, you would definitely want to replant them for next season. But then there's other ones that will last like 2 to 3 years. And then there's some that will last 4 to 5 years. I'll try to kind of put a list of the ones that you need to plant the next season, ones that'll last 2 to 3 years, and then some that'll last 4 to 5 years. Try to put a list in there. Okay. I want to be very clear on seeds that you buy from a store. They usually somewhere have an expiration date. Like this one says October 31st of 2022, today actually. So according to this, they should be expired, but they don't actually expire on those days. They actually grew a Judean date plant from King Herod, the King Herod from the scriptures, Matthew, from his temple. When they were going through it, whatever, they found these seeds, they planted them, and they were viable seeds from 2,000 years ago. So just because these may say it's an expiration date doesn't mean that the seeds aren't viable. As a matter of fact, some of them can be viable for many, many, many years, up to 2,000. So don't ever throw your seeds out thinking that they're not any good. This is one of the mistakes that I made. When I was first starting, I had just found out that you could actually save seeds, and I was pretty excited about it. So I saved all the seeds that I could. But what I didn't realize is that it had to be from a completely ripened plant. So I had a bunch of, it's funny because I'm actually doing the jalapeno peppers right now. Jalapenos was one of the ones that I messed up on. Now, that's not saying that you can't pull from a green jalapeno plant and that none of the seeds are going to be viable. But the best thing that you can do when you are saving your seeds is to make sure that that plant is completely ripened. So say you were doing jalapeno plants and you wanted to save the jalapeno seeds, what you would do is you would let at least one of the peppers on it completely ripen. That means go completely red before you save the seeds on it. Because a green one is possibly either going to not have any viable seeds in it at all, or the germination rate is going to be a lot lower. And I would also advise to save it from the best of the best on the plant. Next big one I want to go over is actually labeling your seeds. I will show you right now. I have 2 plates with seeds on it that I have no clue what they are, because like this one here, it's an ancient sword. You know how I know that? Because it says ancient sword on the plate. And I'm sure what it comes down to is I was thinking, oh, that's not a big deal. I'm gonna put them on this plate. I won't forget what they are. Well, guess what? I forgot. So when you save the seeds and you are laying them out to dry, make sure you write what kind it is on the plate, or however you save them, plate, napkin, however. Make sure that you write it on there. Next place to write it on, you want to make sure that you have all the information in the package that you're going to put your seeds in. And I would also just say, what I do is I like to put all the information on. So I like to put, obviously, that it's a pepper. And then I like to put the name of the pepper, and then how much sunlight it needs, how many days to germination rate, how far I need to plant them. I like to also put in there how far in advance I need to start them indoors. And then here you can see my little asterisk that lets me know that this is my information on how it grew for me. And then I also like to put, like this one here, these seeds here I was gifted from Jeff at Grow Something with Jeff. So one of the mistakes that I have made is not putting all the information on there. And then I find a new gardener that is looking for seeds, or somebody that has not grown that variety is looking for new seeds, and I share the seeds with them, and then they don't know what to do with it because all the information's not on there. So I always put the information, all the information on there, just because if it's something for me, obviously I want the extra information with my little asterisk. But if I'm sharing the seeds, especially if it's to a new gardener or somebody that's not grown this variety before, I want the information on there that I can share with them so that they can actually get it to grow. So as far as the labels I'm making, I just use a regular sheet. This is a little bit thicker. It's not quite cardstock, but it's a little bit thicker than just regular print paper. I can get 9 of these little cards from one stock of paper. So that's what I like to do. Do not write it on the plastic, because, or if you do, make sure whatever marker you're using is meant to stay on the plastic, because I have legit smudged it so bad that you can't even read it. And other than the fact that I might have been able to look at the seed and know if it was a pepper or a tomato or a melon, I didn't know what kind it was. I didn't know what variety it was. So make sure that you put it on paper and not on the plastic. Okay, so as far as like actually storing and what to store the seeds in, there is so many different options. I mean, obviously I'm using the little plastic bags, but I have used brown paper bags, the little cups that you get from restaurants. That was bad. I almost put it in the wrong bag. Pay attention. But I have another mistake to tell you. Pay attention. When I first started gardening, I was actually working at a pizza place, and so I was using the little cups that you get at the restaurants. You know, the little cups that has, well, there, it was like dipping cheese and marinara, and then it had the little lids. I was using those to save the seeds. But you can use brown paper bags. Those are another one I really like. I use those for years and years. And the good part about the brown paper bag is it keeps them dark, it keeps them dry, and you can write right on the paper bag. You can write all the information right on the paper bag. Here comes another mistake. Like I said, I was using brown paper bag for years. Well, that was wonderful because it kept them good and dry. I was able to put them up. It had all the information that I needed, wrote right on top of it. The problem is that I didn't put the brown paper bags in something that was safe. So that year I fed a lot of mice. Well, maybe I didn't feed a lot of mice, but I definitely fed some of them. Make sure that you put it in a place where you don't have to worry about the critters getting into them and feeding all the critters. Another good way to store seeds is in glass jars. So you can use like your mason jars. What's even better if you're going to use glass jars is to use dark glass. So if you can get the glass that is either like that dark amber or even some of the dark blue, those would work even better because then it also helps keep the light out. Okay, next I want to talk about actual storage systems. And that is basically how are you going to keep these seeds so that you can keep them separated and know what seeds are what. And what I'm using now is these photo boxes. I have different photo boxes labeled different ways. I actually have a whole video on this system here and how I set this one up. That is what I'm using now, but I haven't always used this system. I've used the manila envelopes. I had them separated, you know, like this one was for tomatoes, this one was for peppers, this one was melons, that type of thing. Another way that I stored them there for a while, some of you may not know this, but Kenny was huge into collecting baseball cards. So he had a ton of the baseball card sleeves. You could put the sleeves in a binder like this. And I did that. And that actually worked really good as far as like organizing them and being able to keep them separate. But again, one of the huge mistakes that I made was I wasn't paying attention how I picked it up, and I picked it up upside down. So all of my seeds came out of all the sleeves. And I didn't have them sealed up in little things like this. So when they dumped out, seeds legit dumped everywhere. So that was not a fun mistake to make. But mistakes happen. And we learn from them, right? I know some people, they will take their seeds and they actually put them in the freezer, which is an awesome way. If you are trying to keep your seeds really long term, put them in the freezer because it keeps them fresh even longer. That doesn't really work well for me because I couldn't tell you how many times in the winter I just like going through and playing with my seeds. If you're not one that can stay out of the seeds like me, don't put them in the freezer. I like to keep my seeds down low in a room or wherever I'm storing them because I feel like, at least here in Indiana, we can have winters that are like super, super cold. But then we can also have winters that are fairly mild and it doesn't get too cold. But if the heat is on, heat rises. So if I have my seeds up high, they could go from hot to cold, depending on how cold it got in the house. Like right now, I have my seeds stored in our craft room and it is on a lower shelf in the craft room. And that's one of the reasons I have it down low. Now I've stored them many, many times in the garage because it was a nice, cool, dark place. But I kind of got kicked out of Kenny's garage because I was taking up a whole lot of room in there. Still got a lot of room taken up in there for my gardening. And yeah, if I could bring my seeds in, that's just one thing. I don't have to worry about him accidentally throwing away while he's cleaning his garage out. But for many years, I kept seeds in the bottom of our closet and underneath our bed. I don't like keeping them underneath of our bed just because the simple fact is in the wintertime, sometimes we like to play hide and go seek. And I mean, where else do you hide when you're playing hide and go seek? You gotta hide under the bed at least one time, right? And I've had them get thrown because we have a heater underneath of our bed and we've been playing hide and go seek before and they got tossed up on top of the heater. So yeah, I don't put them underneath our bed anymore. But the closet is an awesome place for them. So there you go. There is some seed storage saving ideas and mistakes that I've made. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me today. I'm gonna finish getting these beans done and get them stored up. And I've got some onions left to do. And then we're gonna have this year's seeds all wrapped up. Anyway, thanks for hanging out with me today. Be safe and God bless.